everyone. My name is David McLeod, and I am your life mastery coach and author of the delicious little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors in the best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. This is episode 231. The title today is Awakening to Purpose. Now, one thing I discovered during my personal growth journey was that the more I deepened my connection to my true spiritual nature, the more I became attuned to my true purpose for being. And the more I aligned with that purpose, the greater my sense of fulfillment became. Awakening to purpose, I think for most people, is a profound process of self-discovery that anyone can embark on. It's an exploration that delves deep into your spiritual nature, unraveling the mysteries of existence and your unique role in it. At the heart of this awakening lies the recognition that you are much, much more than just a physical being. You are a divine, magnificent, unlimited spiritual being of light and love who happens to be engaged in a temporary human experience. Now, this realization can be a catalyst for profound transformation as it connects you to a higher sense of purpose and meaning. After all, when you awaken to your purpose, you tap into a wellspring of inspiration and motivation. Life becomes more than just a series of daily routines. It becomes a sacred journey where each step is imbued with significance. This connection to your spiritual nature allows you to see the world through a different lens, one that transcends materialism and superficiality. So in today's episode, we're going to investigate the idea of purpose in some detail. And when we're done, you'll be inspired to take your own life to the next level. Now, to help in this task, I've invited my friend and colleague, Maggie Sarfo, an international best-selling author, TEDx and keynote speaker, and Akashic Records consultant, to share her experience on the subject. So please welcome Maggie to the program today.
Thank you.
There she is. Welcome, Maggie. Thank you so much, and welcome back to the program. I'm really glad to be with you again. I mean, it's been quite a while, I think, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm. It has been, and thank you for inviting me back, David. I'm very honored to be here, and thank you to your audience as well. It's always a joy to be here.
Yeah. And thank you for mentioning the audience. I just want to say, for those who are here on the live presentation, feel free to post your questions or comments in the chat, and we will do our best to respond to those as we proceed. Also, if you feel like you'd like to share your own perspective on some of the topics that we're discussing, feel free to put that there in the chat too. So Maggie, tell me a little bit about what it is about purpose that is so important to you. Why have you chosen to embark on this particular path?
Thank you, David. So for me, I think purpose is who we are. We may have different names for it sometimes. For instance, I have been reading a book recently by Gay Hendricks where he talks about the genius zone, and he describes the genius as something that you alone has been put here to do. And in a way, that is what purpose is. And we look at our world, and I see us as being part of a bigger jigsaw puzzle, but everyone holds that piece. And being on purpose is you honoring that piece that you alone have, and that can be plugged into the wider piece. So that is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it. Of course, I did not start out saying I want to, be on purpose, but I think as we walk our paths, and as we just go along being who we are and doing what we do, we look back at some point, and then you might say, that is what we call purpose. And then you get that curiosity to explore that more. And I feel that that is one of the reasons why. And also with this work that I do now, with people coming to me more and more with their personal growth questions, I feel that purpose is so important. And when we are connected into that, who we are, it's so much easier to align it to all aspects of our lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I really like that you associate purpose with who we are. That's
Hmm.
something that a lot of people, a lot of teachers fail to acknowledge. I think in let me help you find your purpose in life.
Hmm.
Well, you can't just say your purpose is out there because that's not where you're going to find it. The truth
Hmm.
is, before you can ever find your purpose, you must first know who you are.
Yes.
And this is one of the things that I've been teaching for a long time, and I don't know where it came to me, or I can't remember if I learned it from somebody or if I intuited it. I can't remember. But the point is,
Hmm.
it became obvious to me.
Hmm.
Having a purpose is wonderful, but you can't really be in alignment with that purpose unless you know the truth of who you really are. So that's a
Yes.
powerful, powerful piece of information that I think people have to remember and understand. And so the question that I would ask you to begin with,
Hmm.
how do you help people find out who they really are?
So there are several ways. I look at it in two ways. So the initial way that I would look at it is asking them the kind of questions that will allow them to connect their own dots. And these questions are about the kind of ways of being that they recognize themselves as being in a very happier state, in a very, I want to use the word seamless. It's like life is happening around them and with them, and they are not concerned about anything because they are in that moment, right? And it could be something they're doing, it could be a state of being for them, but it's about getting them to ask those questions of themselves, and then allowing that to come to the fore for them, because I strongly believe that the core essence of who we are and the core purpose is always within us, and we never lose it, we never get lost with it. And I think when we are so off kilter in terms of this core purpose, there is normally a knock on our hearts to say, hey, wake up, see, watch it, see where you're doing, where you're going,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And so you will feel that sense of unhappiness or discomfort in terms of who you are being, the way you are, something you're doing, and you will always question that, because that element of being unhappy, being in that discomfort state, will lead you back to discover what makes you happy. So, in a way, I do ask questions about that, but it also depends on the type of person in front of me. If they are already on some kind of personal growth journey, self development journey, sometimes an awakening journey, then it's also easy for us to look at this more from the Akashic Records perspective, in terms of having a session where they can ask questions, because that session is almost like them having those conversations with their higher self, or the intangible aspect of themselves, or the universe, or their God.
Mm.
But having the asking those questions and being in that channeled stage to receive answers for them, points them directly to the core of the purpose. So yeah, so those are the two main ways: either helping them ask questions, answer those questions to find the core purpose, or we could do it through the Akashic Records work as well.
Right. Now, you said something when you were speaking. You said we never actually lose it. We, and I agree with that statement. However, I think what many people experience in their lives is maybe not so much losing their sense of purpose, but rather forgetting why they came here,
Mhm.
why
Mhm.
they manifested on the physical plane. And so a big part of our journey from early childhood up until, who knows, it can be anywhere along the way. For
Mhm.
me, it was well into middle age. uh, going through a process. In my case, it was going through a process of denying the truth of who I really am, trying
Mm.
to live up to what I believe to be your expectations of how I should be,
Yes.
filling all the blanks, meeting all of external society's
Yeah.
check boxes and all that. And in the
Conditional.
process, making myself more and more unhappy, resentful, and angry.
Yes.
And that it wasn't until I reached a certain point that I
Hmm.
said, wait a minute, this is not working. What is going on? Where's
Hmm.
all the happiness that these people promised me? And eventually I had a wake up call. I won't go into the details of that, but I eventually came to the realization of what I had been doing.
Mm.
And what's really amazing to me is once I started doing serious personal growth work after that to reconnect to the truth and the reality of who I really am, my entire life shifted.
Mm.
No, I mean, I still occasionally experience anger and resentment and frustration. Who doesn't? We all have ego minds. We're going to
Absolutely.
experience those things from time to time. But I
Hmm.
can deal with it now on a much more uh, mature level
Hmm.
because I have reconnected to the truth of who I am. I have re embraced my true spiritual nature. And in the process of doing that, have found the purpose that keeps me lit up.
Yes.
So that's just my a brief explanation of my own
Hmm.
journey. And I know a lot of people go through the same thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think your job and my job together is to try and help people find their way back to that truth. It-
Absolutely. Yes.
it's
Yeah.
not necessarily to wake them up. They have to do that on their own. They have to come to their own realization. But we
Hmm.
can nudge them. We can say,
Yeah.
"Hey, look over here. Check this out. Try this out."
Hmm. Hmm.
Maybe, yeah, maybe they'll wake up that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. And those who want to discover it more deeply, and again, that is one of the reasons why I get so fascinated about this topic, because those who want to keep discovering it more deeply also find that this purpose evolves over time as well. And so I think it's about that, where you are at a stage where you feel on purpose, you feel connected to who you are, and then you get to this stage, and then that a certain level, a different level of unhappiness, or not being so much at ease with yourself, starts to set in again, and you're like, what's going on? And then normally around that time, people around you also feel that you are so on purpose. You're having a great life, everything around you looks good, so what are you complaining about? But sometimes deep within you there is that next level of purpose about to come out or burst forth within you. You're about to tap into another layer of yourself. And I feel that, again, that is an evolution of that core purpose that wants to come out and express a bit differently from how you've been expressing it so far. And I find that that is becoming more and more common, especially those who are already on that self discovery, self development journey.
Yeah, right. It's that's pretty powerful and pretty I'd say very optimistic for anybody who wants to know. I mean, all of us have the potential to get to this stage, you
Mm,
know. And one thing I wanted to mention, you were talking a little bit about how your life might look. Uh, it doesn't matter what the external appearance is. It
mm,
really doesn't matter. For some
yeah.
of us, we may look wealthy, we may look like we've got a great house and a great yard and all that kind of stuff. For others, it may not look that way at all. Some
Not
people who
at
are
all.
extremely happy and very much on purpose live
Yes.
lives of they don't collect things. They don't have a large number of possessions or anything like that. They
No.
prefer that. It leaves
Yes.
them unencumbered to go
Hmm.
through their life just touching people, and that's really all they want to do.
Absolutely. When they measure the happiness index, it's not necessarily people with material things that are the
Exactly.
most happiest. In some cases, it's quite the opposite. Um, and those who actually are able to connect to the truth of who they are and appreciate who they are and how they express this self into the world are normally the happiest, and they can be from anywhere and everywhere, and most of the time not in the very material world that much at all. So yeah.
Yeah, right. And there's another thing that I wanted to mention is that you it's possible to have a very clear declaration of your purpose, and also to have the variations or the depths change over time. Now, I'll give you an
Absolutely.
example. I mean, I came up with a purpose statement back in, I think, 2005 or something. That,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was a long time. It was a 2-year process before I was able to, narrow it down until it's 11 words now.
Mm-hmm.
My purpose statement consists of 11 words. And I'll
I'd
just
love
say
to
it. I'll
see
say it here so people can
it.
see how simple it is. And my
Mm-hmm.
purpose, I think, is I create universal harmony by modeling, fostering, and facilitating authentic magnificence. That is
Mm-hmm.
my purpose. Now, does that mean that everything I do is going to be just tied to that one little statement? Well, it doesn't mean that you will necessarily see things that relate to that,
Mm-hmm.
but as long as I feel that I am aligned with that statement whenever I choose to do something,
Yes.
then to me, it's part of my purpose. Do you see?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. Your purpose, I think personally, your purpose statement should be so big and so, I mean, even though it's only 11 words, think
Mm-hmm.
about it,
Mm.
you know? Modeling, fostering, and facilitating authentic magnificence. Wow, that's a big deal.
Absolutely.
And it's not something I will ever complete in my lifetime.
Mm.
But I try to let that statement
God.
infuse all the actions that I take and all the
Mm-hmm.
choices that I make. I double
Yes.
check with myself. Is this in alignment with my purpose or with my mission statement? That's really that's the reason for having. That's the purpose of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
if you like.
Yeah, it's and that's why some people refer to it as your North Star, right? It's like your guiding light, and it brings you back. And every time you're going off kilter, it brings you back because then it connects you back to who you are. And the expression of that core purpose can differ from one stage of your life to the other, but it's all you, and it's still you on that core purpose because the
Right.
strand will express itself in different ways in different circumstances. But what will be your true indicator is how you feel when you set yourself on course to be that and to do
Yeah,
that.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So it's really an amazing thing. Of course, not everybody's going to have a purpose statement like mine,
Hmm.
but here's what I would recommend. If you decide to do the exercise of creating a purpose statement in your life, the
Hmm.
shorter you can make it, the easier it is to remember,
Yeah.
and therefore it's easier for you to follow it and let it
Hmm.
be that beacon, that north star,
Yeah.
that GPS, if you like,
Hmm.
that's
Yes.
just kind of
In modern
always
terms.
pointing where you're supposed to be going.
Yes. Yeah. And always connected to your heart as well. I kind of like that gesture that you did there, David, because
Yeah,
it will tell you, your heart will always tell you, how you are, how you feel, how you doing in terms of being your purpose and expressing it out. Well, to yourself and into the world. Sometimes we feel that we always have to project out all the time, but being on purpose within yourself is probably one of the most gracious acts that we can, you know, offer ourselves as well.
right.
Because as they say, the charity will always begin at home.
Well, isn't that really not necessarily the definition, but certainly an aspect of authentic self-love?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, a statement that I've always used, that keeps evolving, but the core is always the same: is living my life to the fullest and impacting others in a positive way. And that seems to run through for me all the time. But for instance, with work, with my business, I have a strap line which is inspiring growth in every continent. And that feels so right for me as well. So sometimes when I say, living life to the fullest and impacting others, um, positively while inspiring growth in every continent, it all comes together very,
Yeah.
very nicely. I just came back from Australia, and connecting with the land of Australia and the peoples of Australia, it felt very, very true to me. It felt like it's been a long time coming. So it's about that again, coming back to how you feel, what your heart tells you when you are in the moment. That is always a good indicator of whether you are on purpose or not.
Right. Well, you see, I like that you said that. You inspire growth in every continent.
Hmm.
That is a part of your personal mission statement. Well,
Hmm.
that is very much, it's just a variant, a different kind of way of saying, I
Yes,
create universal harmony.
absolutely.
You know,
Yes, absolutely.
you see,
So
when you
it's no
use
wonder we
words
do
like that,
similar stuff.
right, when you use words like that, you're making it bigger. You're
Hmm.
making it bigger than your physical presence and saying, I know that I can have an influence in the world. You know,
Hmm.
I'm not going to snap my fingers and everything's just going to change, but I am
Hmm.
going to walk through my life and hopefully constantly bring love and joy and happiness and upliftment and empowerment everywhere I
Hmm.
go.
Hmm.
And that's what I heard you say. And you're doing
Hmm.
it, rather than using the word universal, you chose on every continent, which
Hmm.
really is universal as far as the world is
It
concerned.
is. Yes. Yeah. Mm. Amazing.
Well, that is the power of, a self-declared mission statement. It doesn't have to be a lot of words. It doesn't have to be any. In fact, the fewer words, the better, as I said, because it's easy for me to remember. It's easy for me to say. It doesn't matter to me whether you understand it or not. What matters is how I feel about it when I say it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's exactly what you've been saying.
Yeah. And because there are so many of us and we all have that unique, and sometimes I use the word blueprint. So we all have that unique blueprint. Then everyone also has also impacts different groups and different types of people, right? So again, it comes back to that point that how you express yourself could be different from how I express myself, but people will hear exactly what they need to hear to move more closer to you and who you are and what you express and the work you do, because they are meant to hear it from you. So I think it's about that as well. So kind of owning the individuality as well as the oneness within it all and how it all
Right,
flows together as well.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
And it is, this oneness idea is, for a lot of people, it's just a woo woo spiritual statement. It's a bumper sticker. Um, Now, I don't know about you, but I have personally had a visceral experience of oneness. And
Mm.
so I know it's not just a bumper sticker, but
Hmm.
not everybody has had my experience. And so they don't necessarily resonate with that statement.
Hmm.
So how do we bring people to a place where they can find the same meaning of life that you and I have found for ourselves, and resonate with this notion of oneness rather than just having it as a concept in our minds?
Mm. So I think it's about understanding that everyone can come to the same thing, the same concept, the same understanding, the same way of being from different directions.
Correct.
They may use different words to explain it, but it doesn't mean that they are wrong. So I think it's about that, and the word that comes to mind here is it's about tolerance. And sometimes we look at different environments of our world and we will go, oh, don't touch that one, but but if you look a bit deeper, at the end of the day, unless they have deliberately set a very bad intention in the space that they are in, most of the time everyone is doing their best and they're expressing who they are to the best of their ability. And back to the word oneness and the woo-woo-ness of it all, oneness can mean something really big to a group of people, but when you say it to another group of people, they might find another way of expressing that. So I'll give you an example of maybe a group of people who are very mathematically minded, right? Rather than woo woo or spiritual minded. They have their own way of coming to that same conclusions, but they may calculate it to get there, right? They might do it through quantum physics to get there, right? It's not to say that just because they don't subscribe to spirituality in its wider context means that they are not also on a journey to tap into their own highest potential in the best way that they are. I'm not going to use the word wired, but in a way that they are fine tuned to express that, right? So
Right.
I hope that makes sense. So
Well,
different
it
groups
does.
of
And
people
I think that
will
you,
identify with oneness in a different way, not
right.
necessarily the same word, but they might even go with a word like togetherness, or they might even, like I said, they might even choose a word that's quite technical, but it means something to them, and the core of it will connect back to the universe in the same way as the oneness word.
Sure, sure. Now you mentioned quantum physics, and I think it's serendipitous how you end up touching on things that I just totally relate to, and I would have brought it up myself anyway. Uh, but the idea of quantum physics is quantum physicists are discovering that, I mean, everything is connected.
Hmm.
Everything is connected energetically, physically. So this idea of oneness isn't just a spiritual reality;
No,
it's a physical reality too.
absolutely.
And
Yes.
what quantum physics shows is that you and I could be sitting across the table from each other, and just in the moments that we are sitting together, little electrons and protons and neutrons are going back and forth between us.
Hmm.
There's no distinction between these two electrons. They from an external perspective, from a scientific perspective, they appear to be identical. So if we
Hmm.
sat there across the table from each other long enough, our entire collection of electrons and protons and neutrons could actually switch back and forth. Now, that doesn't
Absolutely.
mean we would necessarily change form and become
Hmm.
something different. It only
Hmm.
means that, I mean, because we have a field around us that holds this particular shape and size and skin color and all the rest of that. It holds it
Hmm.
together in some
Yeah.
amazing way.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
the fact is, we can swap energy, and it happens instantaneously. It happens to us all the time, and we're not even aware of it.
Yeah.
But that isn't what I'm talking about with the quantum sense of oneness and the spiritual sense of oneness. They're really the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, in a practical way, those people who will describe it as energy will probably feel the energy. So, two people sat across the table, or two groups of people sat across the table. These people who are more kind of energy focused in terms of how they express and experience, they might say, "Oh, I feel some good vibes from these people," blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And then, maybe in their description of what that is, they describe it, and these are the people who calculate things from a quantum science perspective would put two and two together, and they will go, I can understand why you would feel this way, because this, just like you described, everything is energy, blah blah blah, neutrons, protons. And right there in the center of it is the concept or the idea or the truth of oneness happening. you know it's just
Right.
happening between them. They're just experiencing and expressing it differently, but the core is the same.
Right. And it's all happening because of this field of energy, which might be just called pure consciousness.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I know it's in this field that this Akashic record stuff comes into being. It's all kind of related. It's really
It is.
amazing to me.
It is. Yeah.
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 So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about finding meaning in our
Yes.
lives,
Hmm.
because I think most people go through life and say, what the hell does it all mean? It seems pointless to me."
Hmm.
All
Yeah,
right,
there
so
are.
where does meaning come from? Real meaning, not just something that we
Mhm.
abstractly put onto something.
Yeah. So real meaning comes from us being able to put put a finger on how we, I mean, I can say how we feel, how we think, how we express. But again, there is that intangible aspect that we don't see. And I think ideas around meaning, ideas around purpose, ideas around being at peace and at home within yourself come from the intangible aspect of us. It's also one of the reasons why what is real meaning for you could be different from what is real meaning for me. But we would both feel that we are expressing or we are experiencing a life of meaning when we touch that, right? And I say touch that, which is a physical concept, but it's also about touching that at a level of consciousness, touching that in our heart, mental, emotional, physical. So it's about that. Real meaning is about experiencing a state where your life starts to make more sense for you. Some people may describe it as a sense of purpose, rather than the purpose. They might say a sense of purpose. Again, it goes to show that real meaning is a sense in terms of you experiencing an aspect of you that makes you feel really whole and embedded within yourself to say, this is why I'm here. This is why I signed up for this. This is why I chose to experience this life. And again, it goes back to something that, David, I've heard you say so many times, that perspective of we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And I
Mhm.
think concepts and ideas and experiences which are assigned that, that those words like meaning and purpose touch that aspect of us that is intangible but very visceral and very real. And it means different things to different people.
Right, right. I think, well, you have kind of tied the words purpose and meaning together. And I think that there's an important relationship between those two terms for sure. You know, the idea that the more aligned I am with my purpose, the more my life seems to mean to me.
Yeah.
That seems to be like a true statement. So
Hmm.
we often try to describe what a word or a concept or a statement means to somebody else who maybe doesn't understand that language.
Yes.
And so that's a different level of meaning.
Yeah.
And we have another problem, at least in the English language, where certain words can have multiple meanings. And of course, you cannot really know which one to choose unless you have the context in which the
Yeah.
word is being used. And
Yes.
I think the same is true with the larger sense of meaning.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
you already said this yourself. Each person has his or her own interpretation of what something means based on his or her own purpose.
Hmm.
And that I think is really, really important. So the purpose then becomes like the context, and the meaning becomes the content that fits within that context.
Mm. Yeah. And then they translate that, right? So then they translate that purpose into different strands of meaning, right? So then that idea of knowing that this is why I'm here then leads to I want to express it in this way, right? And they may express it in different ways. They may express it by just being a great mum at home, or doing work solely with individuals, or doing work with groups of people, or doing work with the earth and, you know, trees and vegetation as we know it, conserving what we have within nature, or doing so. That purpose, once we come into that realization of it, then can express itself into different aspects of meaning, because as they do that, they find that, or the way that's coming to mind is they find that they're making a meaningful contribution, a to themselves, to their own lives, to the lives of those around them, the immediate circles, and then to the lives of the wider environment, the wider world, whatever makes sense to them, but in a way that contributes to what they may refer to as meaning and being fulfilled in a way. Again, words keep
Right.
coming up.
Yeah. Well, that's a key word for a lot of people. Fulfillment, isn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting how, well, in my experience anyway, the more aligned I am with my true purpose, and the more I choose actions and options in alignment with that purpose, the more fulfilled I become. That's
Yes.
something that I've noticed.
Mm.
And it's like the purpose drives the fulfillment, which in turn drives me to follow my purpose more completely,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
more deeply. That's an
Yes.
interesting relationship, which I hadn't really thought about before.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that is the evolving purpose as well, right? So yeah.
Yeah. It's nice. And so that leads us then into this concept of um, ease and grace. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
it's funny, isn't it, how the more the more aligned I am with my purpose, the less difficult things become, the more easeful they are. And
Yes.
then things just seem to flow much more smoothly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes. Um, if we allow it and when we allow it. And this that you described there, David, assumes that we have let go a lot of the conditioning around how we feel we need to express ourselves, right? So in instances where we ourselves or circumstances or situations external to us have conditioned us, then we would say, this is my purpose. I know this is how I'm meant to be and express myself to myself and into the world. However, I don't think it's going to work this way in this world that I'm living in. And then there is that conflict which causes the dis-ease or not being at ease, which then kind of stifles our flow. But when we let go of all of that and come into this place of trusting that being on purpose means that you will be led, or you will lead yourself into those meaningful expression of that purpose and what you need to live a more fulfilled life will now come back to you, you will find that ease becomes the word and the expression of this purpose. You will find that grace becomes the expression of this purpose. And with a word like grace, you would not say it to yourself, but you will see or hear it being played back to you. And I think for a lot of the time, this is the universe's way of showing us that we are on track. And another word that comes into the play here as we talk about ease and grace and passion and abundance is the same thing, right? Is just the flow, the giving and the receiving, and just powerfully taking the next step forward. It doesn't necessarily have to be the biggest step, but just trusting and taking that next step forward because it feels good. just takes you from one step to the other, and it starts to create what you wanting to create in your life. Again, the spiritual being connecting more with that aspect of themselves, but then bringing it back into the physical to live an amazing life as well.
Yeah, that's really quite interesting. I think, you again, I mentioned the whole ego thing, I think, before we started. And
Hmm.
to me, the biggest challenge in my life is surrendering the ego, my ego mind, so that I can stay connected to my spiritual nature. And the more I do that, and it's a constant a constant process in my case, I have to say, the more I
One.
do that, the more I connected I am to my spiritual nature. I want to say the easier it becomes. You know, you
Hmm.
you it's like my spirit is naturally easeful and graceful.
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's the source of it.
right.
And then we just confuse it with
Well,
the
right. And
other
then this
element.
other thing you mentioned, abundance. Abundance is
Hmm.
is is one of those things that when my ego mind is loud and in control, abundance doesn't even exist.
Hmm.
But the moment I quiet myself and come back to my spirit, there is nothing but abundance.
Yes,
Abundance is just the natural state of the universe. And it's something
absolutely.
that we all have access to if
Yes,
we give ourselves permission, as you say,
to
if we
receive.
choose to allow ourselves to surrender the ego. And I'm going to be talking about this more in my next episode, but I
Hmm.
love that it's coming up here because
It's
it
meant
just
to.
shows that these concepts, these ideas are flowing through everything we do in our lives.
Absolutely.
Even if the topic of the conversation changes from one week to the next or whatever, basically these underlying truths are present in every case.
Mm, absolutely. And as you were talking, David, what I'm thinking is, this whole universal flow is about the giving and the receiving. And again, as you give yourself to your true state, then you receive, right? You receive what the true state is, which includes the grace and
Right,
the abundance, and then the passions and everything else, and everything seems in sync. And surrendering the ego, for instance, is a way of giving it back wherever you took it from, just giving it back and saying, I'm connecting more to that intangible aspect of me that does not care about the ego. And as soon as we do that, is kind of the giving. And so as soon as we give that back, we start to receive, right, the true self back in, which includes everything else that we so want. But we stand in the way of.
yeah, I really like that. As I give myself more to my true self, I get back the grace and the ease that comes with that. It
Absolutely.
that's quite beautiful. And I
Mm.
think that the give and take, or give and receive, as it were, we often hear it's better to give than to receive, but I believe that the opposite
Both.
is true. I
Yes.
believe that it's better to receive than to give, because when I am receiving, I am allowing you the opportunity to give.
Yeah,
So the receiving has a double impact.
absolutely. And look at the number of people who find it very challenging to receive.
Right.
I was in an event the other day, and there was this interaction exercise that we're being guided to do. And we were told to kind of kneel down and touch your buddy's foot. And maybe touching someone's foot is almost like an act of sovereignty to them, right? Recognizing the sovereignness within the person, in a way, is giving, right? But then when you find yourself in that receiving mode, feeling another human being kneeling down and touching your feet, try that, David. And then
Oh, I've
suddenly
tried
you
it.
might find that resistance. You're like, I'm just meant to be receiving. Why can't I receive this?
Exactly.
And I think we are in a state where receiving, with a lot of concepts around give, and forget about yourself sometimes, the receiving has become quite challenging for a lot of people. And again, when it starts to spread within people, then it becomes a collective energy of not being able to receive. When I started my business, I used to do, and I did not remember to stop the action and receive. And as soon as I stopped, I started to receive everything that I wanted back, not necessarily from where I was giving. And then I realized that was a thing. And then I decided that as I do, I would always take time to just come into a standstill position, which I translate as my reception mode. And things really work wonders. It's one of the reasons why when you go on holiday, for instance, some of the things that you thought was not going to happen start to happen. People call you and say this and that because you have brought the physical body back into that standstill mode where it can receive. Otherwise, we're just doing the giving and not receiving. So yeah, there's so many ways of bringing this giving and receiving concept. But like you said, the opposite is probably true because we overgive, and the having that flow means both the giving and the receiving.
Right. I was glad. I'm grateful that you brought up the subject of touching the feet.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of a workshop I went to several years ago,
Mm-hmm.
where one of the exercises involved, we were paired up in dyads, and
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like a really cool exercise. But I remember when we were given the instructions, we're going to now talk about our feet. I thought, what? We're going to talk about our feet. And the exercise involved each of us washing the other's feet.
Ah, I'm not
And
too new to
when
that,
I did it, when I gave to the other person, I felt one set of emotions. It was a nice gesture. I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
But when the other person washed my feet, all of a
Mm,
sudden I just started crying.
mm,
No one
mm,
had ever paid attention to my feet like that before.
mm,
It was so touching and so moving. I mean, I'm
mm.
feeling the emotion right now.
Yeah.
It was really quite beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you're right,
Yeah.
this idea that sometimes we just got to pause and just let somebody else give.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
we have to give ourselves permission to do that because it's part of why we're here. As I
Mm-hmm.
said, when I allow someone else to give to me, I'm doing a double. It's twice as
Absolutely.
powerful.
I agree. Yeah. And so when someone offers something, we go, "Oh, don't worry, you shouldn't have." We're doing two two things that are not equally not
Right.
good, right? We're not receiving, but we're denying this person the opportunity to give, just like you're describing.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, and that's one thing now that I have learned many, many times. It's the same thing when people would give me compliments or something. I'd
Mm.
say, "Oh yeah, yeah." I'd kind of
Mhm.
do that. Wave it
Yeah.
off.
Mm.
I don't do that anymore. Now I just stand there and I say, "Thank you for your kind words."
Mm.
That's
Absolutely.
what else
Mm.
can I say?
Mm.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me that what the other person is doing is projecting something onto me. I am choosing to receive it, and I am
Yeah.
choosing to acknowledge that they took the
Yeah.
time and the energy to
Yeah.
share from their loving space something about
Yes.
me.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I
I
mean,
agree.
if that's not part of our collective purpose, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Yeah. The collective purpose is just to be and to be happy and be in that state of being happy and feeling that we
Right.
are being who we are and contributing to the world the way we want to. We are meant to. That's all. It
Right.
doesn't have to be as complicated.
Well, we kind of brought up the subject of abundance here a moment ago, and I want to go into that a little bit more because we're getting
Hmm.
close to the end of our time, and I want to make
Hmm.
sure you talk about you wrote up uh, in your talking points this idea of the abundance butterfly,
Oh,
and I
yes.
kind of like that image of the
Hmm.
butterfly. So I'd like to have you just share a little bit about that.
So I think, you know, as we go on our journeys, reconnecting more deeply with who we are, our purpose, and its expression to ourselves and into the world. The next step from there. So if we look at how a butterfly evolves, right, and it goes from, you know, that larva stage into the various stages as we grow. But by the time we become a beautiful butterfly, we are, what can I say, at the peak of our game, right? Um, but the process of doing that includes some of what we discussed here, David: the trust, the surrendering, and walking this path, owning who we are, owning our purpose and its expression to ourselves and into the world, and walking this path confidently, you know. And some people may even throw in the word sovereignty, like, yes, being that being that is here in your unique state to perform or to be something that you alone can be. And the more we own that, more powerfully, more gracefully, more in the trusting and walking that part in confidence, the more we start to become more of the butterfly, the more our colors start to show and brighten up. And, you know, a butterfly, you know, shows its colors, shows its wings, and other people recognize it. And I think that recognition, or even being a butterfly in the presence of other people, most of the time you don't have to do anything, but some of that beautiful energy wraps off them, and it, you don't know, but it does impact them in a beautiful way. But as we give ourselves into the world that way, we also receive, and the abundance, in terms of abundance in all that we desire in order to live our spiritual lives in a physical world, comes to us. So that's what I mean.
Well, I love that image. I mean, and of course, the butterfly is a symbol of metamorphosis. That's often
Mm.
used as we transition from this this little caterpillar and
Mhm.
go through this difficult and challenging process of
Transformation changes.
metamorphosis,
Mhm.
where we
Mhm.
basically dissolve into a mush, really. And then that mush somehow magically transforms into a magnificent butterfly. All
Yes.
of us have the capacity of going through that kind of transformation,
Yes. Absolutely.
and
Yes.
of course, as you mentioned, we're all going to have, we're going to have different sized wings, we're going to have different colors, we're going to have different shapes and stuff on our bodies, and that's just part of the expression
Yes.
of who we really are.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
I think you're right. I think the real purpose after that is just to be in the world. Let yourself be seen. Let
Yes.
yourself be experienced. Let yourself be heard.
Mhm. Mhm. I agree. We are on the same page.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's really beautiful. I mean, I really have enjoyed this conversation. But before we close out, I want you to talk a little bit about this Awakening to Purpose course that you're putting together, and share a little bit about what's going to be involved and where people can find it and that sort of thing.
Mhm. Wonderful. Thank you, David. So the Awakening to Purpose program or course, like David has described it, is a program that has been a long time coming. Looking back now, I would say it's the culmination of 6 years' work, since I started this personal growth work for others. I've been on my own personal growth journey longer than that, but what I decided to bring out into the world is what I have seen after working with different types of people especially through the Akashic Records work and other forms of personal growth work. And I have had the privilege of witnessing how they are embracing the next level expressions of their purpose. And I felt that now is a good time for me to bring this into the world so people will understand their own processes better, their own awakening journeys better as they go through it. But I have provided 6 forms of areas that people are awakening to in terms of their expressions of purpose. And I'm hoping that as we go through the process, as anyone feels called into exploring this further, they would gain a deeper understanding of themselves and perhaps be guided or be able to connect their own dots in terms of, which key areas of these expressions of purpose they feel that they are awakening to, so they can walk into the world and be more of the butterflies that they are meant to be.
It's a beautiful
So
description.
video recordings, audio recordings. They have meditation. So every part is an 8-part program. Every part talks about a particular aspect. So maybe work on expressions that are to do with one-on-one individual work and expressions that are to do with one and group work, expressions in terms of those who are working with nature in all its variations, those who are working with ancestral lineage stuff and clearing some of the patterns, but also bringing some of the good patterns that we can move forward, and those who are working more into the future in terms of imprinting the future generations with what we'd like to see. So different people are awakening to different expressions of these forms of purpose, and every section gives you an understanding of it, plus a meditation to anchor this into you. And if you feel called to it, you meant to express yourself in a way, or at least you gain that understanding to develop your own self and your own way. And then you have an opportunity for a one-on-one session with me during the course of the program. You also have an optional opportunity to come into group online sessions where you can ask any questions. And you also get the opportunity to be part of a community should you wish to. I find that not everyone want to, but should you wish to, you will have the access to do so as well.
Yeah, it sounds really fabulous. And so, do you have a link there that you can drop in the chat and tell people how to get to that?
I do have a link here, so I'm just
Do you
going
have
to
any
share.
kind of special offer that's going on right now?
Absolutely. So you do have an initial 60-minute free webinar anyway, which will give you an understanding to start with. And then the program itself, it's $88 US dollars per month if you wanted to subscribe on a monthly basis. But that has been brought to $55 per month for the launch and for this particular conversation that we're having, and for your audiences, David. And then if you decide to pay upfront, then you also save 2 months worth of it as well. So you have 2 months of the 12 months free. It's an annual subscription program. But even if you don't go into the payment of everything, just registering your interest will give you access to that free webinar. It's a 60-minute webinar, and it gives you a good understanding. I'm just typing that in.
Yeah, that sounds really good. Quite a lovely offer, actually. And this is an on, so there it is, purpose.mearsconsult.com. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
So I'll make sure to add that onto the permanent page that we create for this final recording once it's up. But yeah, that's really fabulous. So we're getting close to the end of our time here, Maggie, and I just really, really enjoyed being here with you again. Are there any final words you'd like to share before I close us out?
I will just say, just own who you are, because at the end of the day, no one ever walks in your shoes. Every time you have that niggly doubt coming in, just remember that you are part of a bigger piece, and just own just that owning and acceptance of who you are does wonders in terms of allowing you to take the next step forward. And it doesn't have to be the big step. It can be the small step, and that will gradually lead you to your purpose and its expression and how that contributes to you and to the world at large.
Fabulous. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much, Maggie. It's
Thank
been
you.
just been an honor to have you here again. I always enjoy
See you
our
later.
conversations.
Mhm.
And I would just like to say to all of you out there, remember, awakening to your purpose facilitates aligning with the universe's flow and co-creating your destiny in accordance with your spiritual calling. It also fosters an interconnectedness with all living beings so that your purpose transcends personal gain to contribute to the greater good. Embrace this transformative journey and enjoy a more fulfilling existence, deeply connected to your inner fulfillment and the positive impact you make on the world. Thank you all for watching today's program. And remember, you can catch the recordings of this and all other episodes on my website at lifemasterytv.com. And friends, I just want to invite you to remember to practice my life mastery mantra every single day. It goes like this: I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, I'm David McLeod, your life mastery coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. I'll see you next time right here on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.